Well, this year you have just come into our field of dreams. You build it, and it will come. And we built it, and you know, dadgum, if they didn't come, it's quite amazing. It's been a long process. My hair was red when we started. I weighed about 260 pounds when we started. So it's been a great effort, but we've built it, and they've come. And just to give you a little overview of our center before we get started with the program today, you're looking at 134,000 square feet of educational facility and job training. This building that's a little over 3 football fields. I'm an old football player, so it's 3 football fields in size. So it was paid for on a bond. The bond was issued for the county to pay a 3/8 of 1% sales tax. That's 37 cents on a $100 bill. The bond was issued in 2019, due to pay off in 2041 or 2042, 25-year bond. 37 cents on a $100 bill. Stevens Investment thought it would pay off probably in 2031, 2032, based on revenue of Saline County. The bond paid off in October. So to pay off that kind of bond in 6 years not only surprised me, but it surprised Stevens Investment Company also. So we welcome you here. We welcome, there's some folks will be arriving, coming in late, just bearing in mind as folks as they come and go, because there's a lot of folks very, very busy today. But this building was built not for today, but for the future. There are things in this building, like we have power boxes located everywhere that have power to them, but there's nothing coming out of them because of the potential need in the future. We work very hard to train and work with our businesses. The Soul Falcon Jet, we just visited with them last night. They're one of our large workers here. Everett Automobile Group's another one. We don't train and work just for the folks to go to work in Saline County. We know we train them here, they'll go to work throughout the Central Park of Arkansas area. So we appreciate you being here for what's going on. I know we have our distinguished guests here that are consultants from really all over the United States. I've had a chance to work with these group. They're sitting at this table the last 3 or 4 days, and they are just great, consummate professionals. So we're going to have them come up in just a moment, and I want to tell you that they're going to have a little panel discussion here. It's going to be conducted by a very good friend of mine, Shelley Short, from the Arkadelphia Chamber. I want to read a little bit of her resume. She's a moderator today for this process. She was a 2025 chair of Metro Little Rock Alliance. She's the president and CEO of the Arkadelphia Regional Economic Development Alliance, an area chamber of commerce, economic development coordinator of Clark County. Prior to our role there, she served as vice president of program and partnerships at the Arkansas State Chamber of Commerce and an executive director of Arkansas Economic Development and Chamber Executives. She launched her economic development career in 2026 at the Arkansas Economic Development Commission, where she has a series of increasingly senior roles culminating from director of marketing. So she's done so much. I've known Shelley for quite a while. She's a little nervous that I'm introducing her today, so I'll be kind of nice and I'll try to be positive with you. But she is a very great person, a consummate economic development professional. I appreciate who and what she is, and she's a very dear friend of mine. Shelley, would you come forward? I did all that without my glasses.
Thank you so much, Lamont. Well, I was a little bit worried when Lamont told me he was doing my introduction because, as he mentioned, we do go back for many, many years, and I'm just glad you left out all of those stories, including that one time in New York. So, I still remember those days. But I am so excited to be here today amongst so many of our friends in the economic development profession. I look around this room and I see so many people that I've had the opportunity to work with over the years or working with now. And it makes me so proud to be in this profession amongst the caliber of individuals that I see out in the audience today and our esteemed panel of site location consultants. So it's been wonderful to have you all here with us in the MLRA region. regionalism is something that is kind of a buzzword, and it's a strategy at times, but for us at MLRA, it's really a mindset. And, we know that our success is dependent upon helping each other. Our success is a shared success. And truly, I can say this, when one of our communities lands a project, we all celebrate with each other. And you don't find that in a lot of areas. And I'm so proud of just the collaborative effort that we have and the spirit in which we support and help each other across county lines at times. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our panel. I was asked to just introduce them by their name and title only. They all have very, very impressive resumes and have worked with companies all over the globe and in locating industrial facilities and have a wealth of experience between all of them. I think that we've been very blessed with the cream of the crop of the Site Selectors Guild to be with us in MLRA. So first up, I'm going to introduce John Longshore, who's the Senior Managing Director of Global Strategy at Newmark in Greenville, South Carolina. Next up is Mike Mullis, President of J.M. Mullis, which is in Memphis, Tennessee. Denise Mullis, who is Senior Vice President at J.M. Mullis, and her bio said Memphis in Florida. So do you have like another house in Florida, So that's great. Monty Turner, Senior Vice President of Colliers in Atlanta, Georgia. And Dee Dee Caldwell, President and CEO of Global Location Strategies out of Greenville, South Carolina. If I could ask all of you to give a big round of applause and MLRA welcome to our panel. Before I get started with you all, and I wanted just to, as I looked out into the audience, I wanted to also recognize my team and staff that are here from Arkadelphia. I'm going to take a point of personal privilege. Ashley Vaughn works with me in my office. Judge Troy Tucker, our city manager Gary Brinkley, and Donna Westerman is also in our office. I'd also like to point out Mason Robinson, who right now is saying hello to Ashley. Mason was formerly at J.M. Smucker Hostess, which is in Arkadelphia, and we are still a little upset that you've kind of come over here, but we know it's for a good cause. But it's great to see you today, along with Dr. Rook of the Chancellor of ASU Three Rivers. So thank you for allowing me that liberty to do that. Okay, so you've been in MLRA for a few days. Some of you, it was your first time here, and others, that would be John down on the end as first timer. And some of you have been here before multiple times working projects within the state. So I will just start with Dee Dee and just kind of ask what, after these, couple of days, or maybe even in your past experience, were your thoughts about the MLRA region coming in, and what do you think about that now?
Good morning, or good afternoon, close. So happy to be here. This was definitely not my first time here. I had the privilege of working with Trex on their decision to locate here at the Port of Little Rock during the pandemic. I remember getting that call in August of 2020 that we had been selected as a site selection consultant. And so we were right in the throes of COVID when we were doing that. And that's one of the things I really give kudos to Little Rock and Arkansas, is helping us navigate those times and deliver a very successful project. So one of the things that all over the years I've been coming here, and I've seen Little Rock. I think my first time here was maybe in 98 or 99, and I stayed at the Capitol Hotel, which was beautiful then, is beautiful now. But I've really seen that evolution of Little Rock from kind of a sleepy southern town with the river and some good bones to something that really has a dynamic downtown. And several of us either live now or currently or used to live in Greenville, South Carolina, which is one of those places that has a great downtown. So for me, it's really been fun to see how both the downtown and also some of the industrial areas, like the port, have just like changed dramatically over the last 27 years, which seems like yesterday. So very excited to be here.
So I've been to Arkansas, but haven't really spent much time in Little Rock. So before I came here, really everything I knew about Little Rock was Jack. And
That's pretty good. He's a good representative.
you know, is relationships, right? Jack, Bentley, Shelley, yourself, you know, and the market visits that you guys come to see us at conferences, come to Atlanta and beat that drum. So it's really before the last, 72 hours, it was really just people and partnership and good people at that. So I've also looked at Little Rock on a number of occasions from Google Earth at 30,000 feet level several years ago, and I think one of the biggest things being here in person, I've kind of recognized two things. Yesterday we had time where we got to go to the port, and it was really impressive to see how much success you've had at the port, and not over a 10, 20-year period, but really over, since 2020. There was one poster board there that really just struck me as the number of companies that had located there since 2020. And I had no idea kind of that growth that happened at the port. And so that was really impressive. And then to Dee Dee's point, I spent 12 years in Greenville, South Carolina, and seeing downtown Little Rock and driving through it, I think I mentioned to Jack yesterday, kind of going through it, I was like, this actually reminds me a lot of Greenville 10 or so years ago. There's a lot of similarities there, and so, yeah.
Thanks. There have been crazy improvements out at the port. It definitely is not the Little Rock port of, 15, 20 years ago, and there's a lot of people in this room to thank for that. So thank you for that, Monty. Denise?
Hello? All right, here we are. I'm going to keep this relatively short and succinct, or we're never going to get to other questions. But I will say that I've done business in Little Rock region, but it's been a number of years. We have kept up relationships, of course, with Jack and some others. But, sitting in the first meeting that we had, it reminded me of a particular client a number of years ago who commented that you see no boundaries between the different organizations. Everybody works seamlessly together. And it was the exact same thing when we arrived here and had that first meeting. So it's the consistency that I absolutely love, the professionalism, but to still see a great team that can work together so well, I was really impressed.
You really believe that? Yeah. Perception is reality. I got a hard lesson in that last night from Lamont. He knew he set me up when he said, if this place is as good as I say it is, you'll buy me a case of shotgun shells. And I said, the bet is on. It's going to cost me a bunch of shells.
Good.
We travel these United States and many countries, and I've seen one other facility of this type in the United States. That's how good I think it is, potentially and certainly in reality. As I've told many people, and Jack and Total Group, AEDC, our friends, Entergy, the cooperative, everyone, the missing link of the state of Arkansas forever was Central Arkansas. It didn't exist because 25 years ago, you didn't work together well at all. Everything was a perception of a state capital and capital city. Then the Metro Little Rock Alliance was formed. The regionalism became a reality. And I can't tell you the difference that I see now after 30 years of being here, more times than you can imagine, and what those opportunities are going to avail of themselves. The regionalism is critical today. It's very obvious. This facility is absolutely phenomenal. And yes, there are great opportunities here, Shelley, to do some really good business.
John, as the first timer in Arkansas and MLRA, what are your perceptions coming in, and what do you think now?
Yeah, I mean, to kind of Monty's point, the relationship that we have and that I've had with the state, Entergy, Little Rock, and other communities around Arkansas has been very strong just through the visits to Greenville and engagements at other events such as the Site Selectors Guild and IAMC. And so I had a very strong awareness and understanding of Arkansas and Little Rock. And I guess what I can say is that what has been sold and communicated to me about Arkansas and Little Rock was kind of the ground truth. I kind of got here, and there were things that I learned for sure, things that I didn't know about Arkansas maybe before, but in terms of the people, the work ethic, the value proposition, and seeing some of the tools that have been recently put in place that you guys have to use, I'm not surprised. I mean, you guys are really set up for success.
As I was telling my friends at Cersei yesterday, know what your product is before you market. So you don't know whether a 50-acre site works, a 100-acre or a 500-acre, until you know who you are and what you've got in terms of workforce, livability, etc. We look at all levels of sites all the time. I don't think Sean Broadway is here.
Shane, I don't see.
He made a promise to me a few years ago he didn't keep. I came here looking at the airport for a major project development, and he promised me that site would be developed. I haven't seen it, and I was looking for him earlier today. You've got to have the product in terms of real estate, but everything else has to be right to make it work. And so don't ever forget that.
Okay, I'll jump in. So in terms of trends, in terms of site size and building size, I would definitely say, echoing John's comments, putting data centers aside, they're really the ones that are taking up the several hundred acres, and kind of putting that aside. We've definitely seen site size at Collier's decrease. So actually, we're looking kind of the sweet spot right now for our team has been really in that 40 to 80 acre sweet spot. And capital investment and job headcount have also kind of gone that way as well. Where we are seeing a lot of the mega projects where, previous years more on the EV and that supply chain, certainly on the chip side, we've seen a shift more towards life sciences and the pharma side for mega projects. Definitely also on the aerospace and defense sector. So that's kind of on the I'd say site size. From a building size perspective, we've really kind of seen that sweet spot in that 150,000 square feet to 300,000 square feet. The days of 1 million square foot bombers are behind us. We were doing a search in the southeast for 1 million square foot buildings, and in one certain region there were 7 of them available, and they're going on their second, third birthday. So there's several developers and owners out there with 1 million square footers that are sitting empty and are probably nervous. So that 150,000 to 300,000 square feet is really a sweet spot. Sometimes edging up to the 500,000, but that's kind of where we're kind of seeing that piece.
I had the pleasure yesterday of going to Russellville, which is my first time I'd ever been there, but I looked on my GIS and we had considered that industrial park and that specific site that they showed me no less than 3 times. It was my first time actually seeing it, so it was great to be there. And one of the RFI said, and they said, well, we like this building, but we want you to build us another one over here that's a little bit bigger here, it has some thicker, thicker floors. And so you have to recognize that almost anything you built is not going to be perfect for almost anyone. So if you have the money to do it and you can let it sit as a marketing piece and hopefully one day it's like building in a subdivision where they build the model that you go through. It's the last one that you sell. So if you can afford to do that, that's great. I would definitely encourage you to lean on your private partners to see if someone would be able to finance that for you.
Yeah, that was something, I had the pleasure of sitting beside Dee Dee last night at dinner and kind of asked her a similar question about, spec buildings and kind of what the market was looking like. And she said something very, very interesting, that if developers are not doing it already in your community, then you probably don't need to do it. If the private sector is not recognized, that's a need, and they are all about their bottom line, then that should tell you something. And that's very, very good advice. So I just wanted to also reiterate that.
And if I could just follow on to that, what it tells you is that there's not a guaranteed return. But private developers are profit motivated. Mm-hmm. And economic development organizations and the counties and cities that they represent have an interest that is above and beyond profit. They are looking for jobs, payroll, tax base opportunities for their citizens. So you look at it with a little bit of a different eye, a different perspective. But if the motivation, if your council expects you to turn a profit on that facility, then they should probably go out and find a private developer that's willing to do it.
That's good. That's good. So talking about site visits, I'm sure you all have been on hundreds of site visits during your career, and a lot of people in this room are often brought in to participate in a site visit in some form or fashion. So from your experience leading projects across the country, what are a few best practices you could share with our group on how to execute site visits when clients visit different communities? And then would like to ask, do you have any horror stories that you would like to share just to kind of keep it interesting? We'll start with Denise.
Yeah, first off, be sure to ask questions. Don't just try to set up what you think the consultant and the client want. We try to help you to have the right people in the room. Sometimes there are public officials or leadership, investors in the chamber, your economic development group that just really want to be a part of the process. And I know it's tough telling them no, but sometimes we're bringing in that top tier executive, or maybe it's the next level, but they don't want to be overwhelmed. If I've got, 2 or 3 execs coming in and there's 20 and 30 people in the room, it's not helping things. If they can't answer questions and they're there just to kind of market, so make sure you're listening to what we need. There's a time for everybody, and hopefully you make it to the next round and then you bring in more of those people are chomping at the bit to help you sell. But, it's making sure that you really listen to what we need.
I'll just add on there because I think that Denise made a really good point there. Once we get to site visits, we've done enough on the technical side that we've checked a lot of boxes. And so at really any point in the project, we're probably the most aligned with you when we come to do a site visit because we need that site visit to go just as well as you do. So to Denise's point, ask questions. Don't be afraid of that. If there's no agenda, if they haven't provided agenda, they haven't provided the objectives of the site visit or what they want to cover or the topics, ask. And they should be providing that feedback. So I would just kind of add that little tidbit is that, hey, I never want to get to the end of a site visit and my clients say, like, Monty, why did we come here? Or what are we doing here? And I think everybody in this room is aligned with that statement.
Remember, in the site selection process, there's objectivity and then the whole personal side of it. And I think that's what we're talking about. Have the right people who are knowledgeable. If you don't have the answer, say that. Never wing it. From any aspect, many times the questions that are asked, ironically, the answers are already known. It's a check and balance of building relationship and making sure that the personality of that community fits the personality of that company. We spend a lot of time on that in every aspect, but that whole point about bringing 30 people to an event makes no sense. Everybody's talking about something that has nothing to do with what we're talking about in terms of the project, and it doesn't impress anybody. So you have that key organization, that key entity, group of people who can be there to objectively and effectively answer questions and be ready to do so. Monty made a great point. When we visit your community, and Olivia and Catherine, everybody knows this, it's one visit. We've already done the homework. So we know what we're looking for, and we're trying to check and balance it. And that one visit never has a repeat if the feeling's not good when you leave there. So spend a lot of time thinking through that. Have enough data on that project, which you are offered. You should be given that data that gives you enough input and intel to know how you're going to be addressing it.
Yeah, I guess my point will also include maybe a horror story of sorts. But I mentioned this maybe at one of the dinners recently in terms of what to do or what not to do, but it's important to really make sure you control the narrative, like from the moment that the company gets into town, not being so overbearing, but you don't want to have the clients get in town and it's somebody's bad day and you could have avoided that situation and having the experience go a lot more, have a little bit more pleasant experience. So, for example, this was back when I was at GLS with Dee Dee. It wasn't a site visit, but it was. We're going to Bangor, Maine, to do some sort of presentation with paper industry or something like that. And we get off the plane in Bangor, and we're having to walk like down the stairs and into the terminal. It's kind of getting cold. And one of the baggage handlers who's out there, he said, "Welcome to Maine, welcome to Bangor, welcome to hell." And you're like, great. And then we get in an Uber to go to the hotel, and the lady's like, "Oh, have you been here before?" And I'm like, "No, I've never been here." I don't remember what Dee Dee said, but she said, "Well, you've come like at the worst time. This is the worst time." Like, it was great. It was great just a couple months ago. It's just an example of maybe somebody could have picked us up from the airport and they wouldn't have had that experience. All of that to say is that you can only control so much, but control what you can, control what makes sense, so that the experience and the narrative the whole entire time communicates what you wanted to communicate.
That's great. So all of us should take note not to say welcome to hell on a site visit. So we're in this beautiful facility that's dedicated to workforce development and preparing students for a career. And you had a chance to hear from our workforce ecosystem partners this morning. After hearing from them and being in this facility, what are your initial impressions about our region's workforce? Or what have you uncovered as you have looked at the MLRA region about our workforce?
Can I start?
Sure.
So, I've the last couple of days has been very enlightening because I've been to a lot of community colleges, technical colleges, places like this that are for high school students with learning technical skills, and it's been really impressive. I can definitely see that Central Arkansas is committed to developing the skills that are needed in a manufacturing, agricultural, what business needs. So I am super impressed with that, and like, I have all kinds of questions about how this all came about. One of the things that we talk about this is kind of tying into site visits, is that when we came in here today, there were students in the classrooms. There was students doing welding. And I've been on site visits, I would say probably 4 out of every 5 times you go into a technical school and it's not when the students are there. It might be a holiday, it might be too late, it might be too early, it might be during the summer, whatever, and there's maybe nothing you can do to control that, but when you go in and you see that activity, it becomes so much more real for you. And so today was the first day that I actually got to see that in action, so that was really impressive.
I'll add to Dee Dee's comment there. I've been doing this for 16 years. I think I can't remember how many career tech schools I've toured, but this is the first time I've been into a welding program where there's actually people, they are welding and there's sparks flying in 16 years. When you do site visits, you can control the schedule, right, too. So make sure that that's there. Also had this like great sense of pride for Arkansas walking through. Just to see like, hey, this is the next generation. This is exactly who we're all putting to work and employing, and this is what the U.S. needs to maintain standing globally. And I don't think that story's told enough in general, but it's exactly what we need to maintain our competitive edge on the world stage. And thank goodness for teachers. Thank goodness for higher education. Really do appreciate it.
Yeah, I don't know how much more I can add to that, but I just kept thinking as I was walking through, I'm like, can we just take a moment of silence to like acknowledge the greatness of this place? It is amazing. It's 134,000 square feet. I mean, this is, there's another state that has a beautiful facility, and I said, it's that on steroids. Like, these things just keep getting better. And one of the questions that we asked, how do the students get here? They can be bused or drive. It's great if you can drive. A lot of the kids I've seen in other areas where that's a barrier. Well, we don't really have transportation set up yet. So I was thrilled to see that. But again, seeing that there are students in here. So I think this is this is an incredible asset to a site visit. I would offer a tour. Sometimes there's not time for a tour, have somebody come in and speak, but this is just a phenomenal asset. I think it's going to continue to grow. And I love seeing also that it's industrial occupations as well as adding in healthcare. I think that it's coming. I don't know if it's here yet. And then we're walking by and it's as though, that's the police academy. Yeah. And as though it's nothing. And we're walking by going, this is absolutely amazing. So well done.
I'd also just kind of add, while we're on it, the one thing I was a little bit concerned about, and kind of talking about perception, is Arkansas is a relatively small state from a population base, so that was kind of one of my concerns, and seeing kind of the different workforce elements that can be brought to a project here, and what I've seen the last 24 hours has given me a lot more confidence in being able to staff up. Now, I'm still a little bit skittish because you have seen a lot of success, especially in the last 5 years. I was talking about all those projects, so that there's still a concern, but I feel that there's the momentum to be able to make good on your word of bringing that workforce to the table?
A couple of things. I think last night was the greatest testimonial I could have heard to this particular complex when Lamont and I were standing talking, and the operating manager for this all said, this is one reason we're here to be expanding this complex and what's happening. I thought that was a testimonial second to none. For a person who's done business in this state for many years, I will say this about workforce. It's been one of the most challenging states to get companies to consider because of lack of knowledge of the state. Had nothing to do with negative, just didn't understand it. But the thing that I always said was, if you come and look, you will like it. And we've done many projects throughout this state, and all of them have expanded multiple times. That's the key of workforce and commitment, that now in this new day and era, what we see in this complex, what we see in the state program for training, it's absolutely necessary. It's not a plus, it's a necessity that we do this for the changing technologies, for the skill set transferability, that what we've had forever in basic manufacturing, we're going to a new technology, totally. And I see this as a great positive opportunity in this state. The companies just have to be introduced to it and have that opportunity.
Jack, how are we on time? I didn't wear my watch, so, okay, somebody give me the cutoff when it's time to be done, because I could do this for a good while. But so thinking about MLRA and regionalism, where do you see us most competitive when compared to our peer regions in the Southeast or nationally? And then I guess we could combine that if you had, one takeaway item that we could implement to be more competitive, what would that be? Where are we most competitive compared to others in our region, and what could we do to be even more competitive?
Can I go?
Absolutely.
And I told the governor this yesterday morning, and this is a national problem, that the best resource, the best natural resource in Arkansas is totally underutilized, and that is the river system. And I don't know, I can't solve it. I don't think anybody in this room individually can solve it, but every time I talk to a governor or anybody that has any say in this whatsoever, I'm like, we need to move more freight to the river, because that is a huge advantage for the United States. And it would be a much bigger advantage for Arkansas if we did that as a nation. Beyond that, I would say that, let's face it, this is flyover country, right? Kentucky has got the Kentucky Derby and KFC. Tennessee has got Jack Daniels. At least you're not Missouri, where their largest city is named after a different state. So, the most famous things that come out of Arkansas are Walmart and Clinton, and I don't know that a lot of people necessarily know that, right? So it's harder for you, back to what Mike was saying, is to make people aware of what the benefits that you have. So regionalism is one of the ways that you can amplify your voice, because if you're Russellville and Arkadelphia and North Little Rock and all of these different places, if you're all trying to scream at the same time, but you've got this little bitty voice, it's not the same as if you pool your assets. And I think it's not just about the marketing, it's also about thinking about your inventory. Like, you don't need 5 megasites in one region. You need 1, maybe 2. And then you need some existing buildings, you need some 50 to 100 acres, you need some 100 to 200 acres, et cetera. So just being a regional, not just the organization, not just the marketing piece, but understanding how you can all work together in order to, a rising tide raises all boats, right? And so if you're able to do good things here, and silence? No. Saline, thank you. Monty pronounced it Saline earlier. So that is the number one thing that site selectors have to do before they go somewhere, is learn how to pronounce all the place names, because nothing will get you laughed out of a room if you mispronounce the name. But so if you're doing great things here, and people get educated here, they may not stay in this general vicinity, but they might go to somewhere else in the region. And so I really applaud what's being done here and in the central region of Arkansas, because I think it's helping all of you be more successful.
Who's next? I'm going to put everybody on the spot with this one. John, you've got a
Yeah,
mic.
I'm happy to go. Hold the microphone. Right here. No, it's fine. It's fine. I'd like to. It seems to me, and this is just from a few days of watching and hearing kind of some of the testimonies, it seems that the Little Rock Chamber and the things that they have helped implement broadly across the region, and I'm thinking maybe specifically we just learned about the academies, right? That's something that the chamber has helped to implement, which I thought was really, really unique in terms of, I mean, I think it was funding too to help get that stuff lifted off the ground. And you don't really see that in maybe like kind of regional groups who more handle the marketing or maybe project management, but to really see, you know, that type of funding to go right directly to this academy program kind of shows that there's this ability to get things implemented more at a regional level than compared to some others, in my experience. So, you know, kudos to you guys as a region for working together to have that happen. So I don't know where you're going to stand in terms of, you know, I don't want to like rank, but that definitely does stand out to me in terms of, you know, you're not just relying them to like filter in projects and market, but also like get things done locally that do matter.
Yeah, I would, I'm just kind of thinking two random thoughts, and that's, you know, one, I'm thinking of my tour that I had of Jefferson County yesterday, and shout out to Allison and Nancy. I know they couldn't be here today, but I didn't know much about Jefferson County. I didn't know much about Pine Bluff. And so when I think about that, and you know, they are working so hard, putting sites together, their energy was amazing. They're excited about potential, you know, growth for their area. And I'm thinking areas like that need to make sure that they have a best friend at AEDC, a best friend with the state, because if I come in with a project, I might automatically think Little Rock. Okay, we can look, you know, at Arkansas, Little Rock, but you build relationships and, you know, these other areas extending beyond the area everyone knows, you know, either I now have a relationship and we can go, you know, and include them right away, or we go to the state and, you know, they already have the relationship and they recommend an area maybe we didn't think of. And just one other thing that I'm thinking is that y'all have one of the best assets. You are so fortunate to have the governor that you do. I've lived in other states, I've worked in other states. Some are phenomenal. You can have that governor at the table when you need them, and some don't want to be there until they shake the hand of the executive who just made the decision. A lot of times we don't need you after the decision, we need you to help make that decision, and I think you have somebody who is ready and willing to do that, so that's awesome.
There are a handful of states that, number one, the governor is the key element of closing a deal. Has nothing to do with money necessarily. It has to do with attitude and personality. Denise said it well. This governor does. Ironically and positively, this state has always had a good list of governors who understood economic development, no matter what the party was. I think the other thing to me that's so important, and you just did this with Entergy and West Memphis, you've got a legislature that gets it on business-wise and helped with AEDC change or modify some legislation that made something happen that probably wouldn't have happened. We probably have 8 to 10 states that act that way. that the state legislatures really get it, and they always step up to help in any feasible manner possible. Arkansas is certainly one of those states. That's where smallness comes into being. You can operate much better at 3 million than you can at 12 many times.
I would just add a couple things that I've seen. Last month I was actually in a different part of the country meeting with another regional group, and we spent a lot of time actually in just one of the communities within that region. So it kind of was strange that we were being hosted by the regional group, but we were spending a ton of time in just one location. So that was kind of saw some cracks there, and just kind of throughout my time at that location, there was a couple, comments that just kind of overhear of like, we're very competitive with our surrounding communities, and I haven't. Maybe Jack's done a great job of shielding us from that the last 72 hours, but I haven't noticed that here. And the events that we've been to over the past 72 hours, it seems like everybody is in the same sandbox and playing nicely with one another. And I think that comes with a strong regional organization that can help lead the charge there and help with the branding. I think Dee Dee was talking about branding earlier. Like, I live in Peachtree Corners, but I tell everybody I'm in Atlanta, right? So that, like, nobody knows where Peachtree Corners is, especially in Georgia. You have Peachtree of everything. So that branding is very strong. It's very important. So those are just kind of the little things that I've picked up. And then one last thing that I'll be quiet is there are a lot of regional organizations that take a very hands-off approach in terms of project management during the site selection process, where they see their job as more of the marketing piece and the get the project in the door and then hand it off to local economic developers. And I think that works well in some projects if there's a specific product that we're looking for and there's only one community that fits that, checks those boxes in that region, then that's fine to go kind of directly through. But you have to have a regional organization that is going to be that single point of contact for all of those communities. And there's too many regional organizations that want to push that off and just say, hey, I've done my job, I got the RFP through the door, I can check that KPI metric. Now it's up to you, local economic developers, to close the deal. And having worked here and done RFIs here, I think the Chamber does a really good job of kind of continuing to be that point of contact throughout the site selection process.
That's good. I would have to echo, and not just because Jack is in the room, but he really does a fabulous job of leading this organization along with the colleagues that he has on his team and at the Chamber. And I can just even personally say there have been multiple times that Jack has reached out and said, if you need any help, if he knows I have a site visit, if he knows that there's something, maybe sometimes he's trying to compete, I don't know, but no, I'm just kidding. But he's always the first one to say, Shelley, if there's anything you need to help make this be more successful or anything I can contribute, please let me know. So I definitely feel that. And then, just from my perspective, selfishly, yes, I want the project in Arkadelphia and Clark County, but then my next is I want it in MLRA if possible, and then my next is I want it in Arkansas. And so whatever we can do as a state and region to help kind of support that, yes, we'd love it here in our community first, but if not there, then in our region, and if not there, in our state. So appreciate those comments from everyone. We have some time for Q&A from the audience. Does anybody have anything that they would like to ask? Any burning questions that have been, percolating? Jared? No. Come on, this group is not shy. Go ahead, Bentley.
So, Dee Dee, you mentioned it earlier about rail. We haven't really talked a lot about rail serve sites, the need. Have you all seen, the value of a rail serve site? Are we seeing a lot of activity in your clients needing access to rail, that sort of thing? Just curious where we are.
I'm probably not the best one to answer because I work a lot of projects. It's about 65% of our projects require rail. So I'm probably not the best one to ask, but to answer the question about the quantity relative to everything else. But to me, rail-served sites, true rail-served sites, are kind of like oceanfront property. They are not making any more of it. So you need to protect those and use them for their highest and best use. I am sick and tired of seeing data centers go in and out on rail-served sites because they have the cash. And it's really hard for communities to turn that down. So try your best to make them an alternative offer that doesn't take up that particular use.
Bentley, we've spent a lot of time recently in talking with rail companies who have come to us to talk about how to better market. And now we're seeing the culmination of joining of railroads, class ones, that can connect from one side of the United States to the other. We asked a question last week of one of our major clients, do you need rail? And they said it would be a good thing. I said there's only one answer, yes or no. Because if you start that site search and you include rail, you've diminished your opportunity by 60 or 70%, particularly in today's environment. So probably 25% of what we see in the industry would require rail. Most typically it's inbound. It's not outbound. We're moving a lot of stuff by truck, by volume, by time, outbound. But that rail is critical if it's needed in that paper processing and that chemical processing, food and beverage. And we talked about this yesterday on my tour. You either have it or you don't, but don't think because it's there, it's available. The other thing we find out so frequently is the local economic developer will show their site and say, look at the rail right behind it. Has anybody asked the railroad the question, can they serve it? And frequently they don't want to. They've got high-speed trains, and they're not going to stop those trains, and so you have to build a mile of tail track to get completely off the main line. So that study in itself needs to be done. I don't think the percentages of projects will change that need rail, but those that do need it. If you've got rail accessibility, whether it be class 1 and or short line, and we're big short line users, we like that, then make sure that you've had that interface just like you'd have it with your electric service providers we talked about yesterday, to make darn sure they can serve what you're marketing.
There was a gentleman in the back that had a question. Sort of the question was onshoring, is that something that is political, or is it or is it
think
just
specifically about the federal effort. So, you know, we started in the Biden era, we had, and also before that too, but we had the carrot, right? So the CHIPS Act, the IRA, and the Infrastructure Act. That was money that was used to incentivize certain projects to come and build here in the United States. So we saw a lot of investment from TSMC, Intel, others to build chip manufacturing. We saw a ton of stuff on the renewable side or green energy, so everything from sustainable aviation fuel to solar panels to, you know, electric vehicles. Those are primarily being allowed to sunset. Some of them are still going to remain, but like the 45X, which is the renewables credit, is going to go away. But now we've replaced it with the stick. And so now, instead of subsidizing, it's like, well, where the stick is you either move here or you are going to face tariffs, or at least your customers are going to pay the tariffs. Both of those are absolutely real. I mean, we saw a ton of activity on the site selection side for all of those projects that were receiving these incentives. And a percentage of them are moving forward. But there were also a lot that were chasing money, and they weren't very well funded. They were, you know, what do you say, a hope and a dream or something like that. You know, they were not real projects. The same thing is happening on this tariff side, except for the real issue for us right now is we have no certainty on what that's going to look like in 6 months or a year, or certainly not in 5 to 10 years. And these companies make decisions based on generational investments. So they're not looking to invest, you know, $100 million or $1 billion or whatever it is into a new location to operate it for 5 to 10 years. It's got to make sense over the long term. So the long-term picture, I think, for the U.S. looks really, really good for a whole variety of reasons, which includes, you know, our workforce, our market, our stability, our energy prices, et cetera. The short-term picture for me is really murky. And I don't know how successful those programs are going to be, and we won't know until I think we get to 5 to 10 years out from this.
I'll just kind of, you know, our perspective at Newmark in terms of projects that we're working and what we're seeing. One, we've seen a lot more Chinese-based companies who kind of see the writing on the wall and know things are, while things are changing and we're not sure exactly where things are going to land, it does seem that that's going to be a pretty strong stance going forward, maybe for a while. And so we've seen a lot more activity from Chinese companies, which makes things very interesting for us and how we go about doing site selection for them. So that's one example. And a second piece is that Howard Lutnick, who is on Trump's cabinet, was my boss's boss before he switched over. And so we are seeing some very interesting large-scale type projects from maybe close connections with Trump, and they're very big and ambitious things that you know, they're looking at going on BLM land, and how does that going to work? And so there's these big projects. We're not really sure how it's all going to play out. So we're seeing some activity in that regard. To what degree it's going to become a reality, not real sure. So that's just a little bit of perspective on some of the things that we're seeing and working.
I'll just kind of echo my peers up here. I've been doing site selection for the past 15, 16 years, and since I started in the industry, we've been talking about reshoring and onshoring. I think the main difference that I've seen over that period of time is how the federal government has positioned itself to help that cause or not. So I would say kind of that first, really starting, I guess, in the Biden administration, to Dee Dee's point, was more of the strategy was to incentivize companies to move here by themselves. And before that, there wasn't really, in my mind, many federal incentives or programs that really enticed people to be here. It was more of a cost competitive advantage from a energy perspective and a reliability perspective. If you think about natural gas costs and pushing electric rates, that was kind of the incentive, especially if you're a heavy industrial and wanted a safe place to invest. The federal government has gotten more and more involved in that reshoring, onshoring tail. And we've seen two very different types of strategies with incentivizing versus tariff. In the incentivizing portion that we saw under the Biden administration, we saw personally a lot of companies thinking, hey, we want to come to America because we hear that you're just handing out cash. You're like, no, it doesn't work like that. On the second strategy, the Trump administration strategy, we've seen a lot of companies that have never had a footprint in the U.S. and they have no idea of what the wage rates are like, what electricity prices are like, what's it like to lease a location, a building here, like what does it take to have a manufacturing operation in the U.S.? And so because of that, and kind of in actually both cases, we've had a lot of people that have tire kickers of like, hey, we're going to come, show up, and we're going to get a big check at the end of it, or before we even start. And on the back end, it's been more like, hey, we're being told that we have to be here, otherwise we're going to get hit with tariffs, and our supply chain can't handle that, but we have no idea how to actually set up shop here and go through that process. So it's been really challenging these last 8 years, the last two administrations, because of some of that and kind of weeding a lot of that out. Where I did not personally see that in the front end of my career because the federal government was a little bit more hands-off from that perspective.
Any other audience questions? What?
Who did the speech on incentives and why they matter? Should I take it, or were you listening?
did, right?
I don't think Lamont heard your. I don't think you heard your presentation.
It's the same thing last night. Somebody step up.
Sat by Mike, so I'm going to assume he was the one.
Lamont, you won't win because I owe you shells, so it's not going to make any difference from that standpoint. I think our guy, we said it very straightforward and very well. To me, incentives can help close the deal, but everything else has got to work. Everything else has got to work. It's kind of like building the spec shell building and being told to build it and they will come. They will come, but then they'll leave if the other pieces aren't right. So those incentives, when you're doing the kind of work we're doing, you're analyzing what the best capable deal is for that given state and location, and many times it doesn't match well to another state you're looking at because of how the deals are structured. So it really gets down to that community and your ability to help offset front-end cost. That's what we look at. I made a statement the other day, a speech, that said incentives used to be the pie, the cream. Boards of directors now look at it and they count it in the return on investment model. So it's critically important that it be considered in every manner possible, but it'll always be differentiating.
Just one other thing I would add is that because we see this, you're getting down to, the top two, let's say, and, someone will say, they're trying to figure out what you're getting in the other state. That's not important. You don't have to match what the other state is giving. You have to give what you can give. So we may kind of push you to the wall, but we're not going to push you beyond what is reasonable for what you can do. And maybe it doesn't measure up to the other state. That doesn't matter. You do what you can do, they're going to do what they can do. Everything else lines up. And then, sometimes you lose a project. It happens. Only one person can win, right? But you know what to do for the next time around.
And sometimes losing that project ends up being a blessing, because you don't know what's coming next. And, doing a project with a company, a community and a company matching together is kind of like dating. You're on site visits, and then you announce a project, which means you get engaged. And then once you build the project, that's like pregnancy. You open it up and you got a baby. And you are committed to them forever. Believe me, I know. So you want to make that decision really, really carefully. And I think I said this yesterday, but I'll say it again. At the end of the day, it's people that are making the decisions about where they're going to locate, and they want to sit across the table from somebody who's as invested as they are. You know, companies are coming here and they're investing hundreds of millions of dollars in creating all of these jobs. And if you say, we're not going to do anything on incentives, it's just a natural reaction to say, they don't really want me here. They're not willing to become my partner in this project. So sometimes you don't necessarily have to do something that huge. It's just that compromise, that willingness to get down in the dirt, roll your sleeves up, and work together with this company that can make the difference.
Monty looks like he has something to add. Or
I like pizza. No, I think one thing, just on incentives real quick, to Mike's point, incentives become a conversation like right off the bat, because it's very visible within a company and within their board, and they always want to know like where are we going to get the best incentives from. And so it's part of our job to say, okay, well, let's take a step back, and figure out what you need operationally, because to Dee Dee's point, they're going to be there for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And so it's our job to kind of reshape that perspective to say, let's find a location where you're going to be successful, and then let's figure out how the incentives impact your total landed costs from there. On the kind of as an industry, economic development and site selection, I think we do a really poor job of describing what incentives are and how they actually work, especially to elected officials and to the public. I think, quite frankly, data centers have had a similar situation with what benefit they actually bring to communities and to states. And so in that same vein, it's not, hey, we've got a $15 million just sitting in a piggy bank somewhere and we're going to hand that over to the company. The company has to, in many cases, perform to be able to get that. And it goes back to my analogy that I used yesterday, in that, incentives are like a coupon or a discount rate. It's, we're going to bring you $1. Can we get a portion of that dollar back for coming to your location? And I kind of liken it as well to, we're asked, should we build out infrastructure to a site? Should we invest that money and do it? And I always say is, it's up to you and your board, but if you don't do it, somebody else that you're competing against is going to do it. And I can't control that. The market controls that. And so that similar thing with incentives is, we are looking at the total landed costs. And so if you've got a high cost of doing business, but that incentives helps that, and you have another community that is, similar, and they're providing incentives too, that's what we're going to provide to the company. And it can make or break and push a project in going one place over the other, absolutely. But there are other factors, and in many times our companies, our clients, don't go to the most cost competitive when you factor in incentives. It could be relationships. It could be the trust that they have in that community and that state to actually execute and be able to pick up the phone and say, Jack, I need help with X. Shelley, I need help with Y. Those factors into that overall cost element as well.
All right. Well, that was excellent. I mean, what I took from that was if you're not doing it as a community, one of your competitors will be, whether that's site development, workforce, incentives, you name it, investing in your educational system. If you're not doing it, one of your competitors will be, for sure. So kind of on a rapid fire, and then we're going to close it up. I asked this earlier, and some of you skirted it, so I'm going to come back to it. But if you had to recommend one takeaway action item for our region to be more competitive, what would it be? Just thinking about all that you've seen and heard, what would you boil it down to for MLRA to be more competitive?
My suggestion to all towns, communities, is just continuing to invest in your downtown, your main streets, and that quality of life perspective. I think that will continue. That'll pay off in the long run. So while you want to obviously invest in sites and all those things, it's, the companies are going to come in, is this a place I can see myself living? So continue to do that, and it'll continue to raise the bar for the whole region.
Become that community that in the site evaluation process by us or companies direct, you are the community to which every other community we're considering has to measure. That means your community preparedness has to be on target in every aspect. You heard some of the comments yesterday at our luncheon about all the different points that are evaluated in a site selection process. Do that just like you do your own family. Analyze that community in every detail, make it the best it possibly can be. When that consultant visits, you become the community by which they use their checklist with others. That'll be a winning home run for you.
Keep the lines of communication open. I saw a lot of collaboration. Keep doing that. Keep working on your workforce initiatives. And,
I'd say from a site perspective, I think the port has been really successful. It's come a long, long way. And now how do you kind of take that model and move forward with it? Moving out into the region. I saw a lot of great sites on my tours yesterday that have a great potential. They're not quite there yet. So leverage the site readiness fund that's at the state level. Go to Catherine and Bentley and JD, get them to write you a check from the utilities, and go from there.
I'm going to go back to what I talked about yesterday, which is just investment readiness, which means sites, utilities, workforce, finances, and to work as a region to gameplay, like if we get this kind of RFI, where's that going to go? Do we have a product and a location that meets those requirements? And if not, and that's something that we want to target, is there a way that we can develop that? I'm going to go back to that, what's the quote I used yesterday? Opportunity plus readiness equals winning. And so be ready when the luck happens. That's what I was trying to think of. Be ready when the luck happens and just put in that hard work to prepare as much as you can so that when the opportunity presents itself, you're able to capitalize on it.
Well, thank you all very much for your kind attention today and for our wonderful panelists providing great insight for us and our region to be able to grow. I want to give a quick thank you to the sponsors of this event, the Arkansas Economic Development Commission, the Electric Cooperatives of Arkansas, and Entergy Arkansas. So thank you all for that. Thanks for everyone for being here and our panelists for being a part of this wonderful lunch today. Y'all have a great afternoon.